BruCast is back, baby.
This BruCast episode is brought to you by the BruCast Store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BruCast. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Visit now bru-cast.com/store. Link below. Alright, welcome back to another BruCast episode. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast is recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. BruCast is also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where I upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, BruCast on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links on the description below. Our guest today is Dorsey Ross. How are you doing, Dorsey?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course, man. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure. I saw your profile. I was truly inspired, and I'm really eager to get to know you, get to know more about your story, and hopefully inspire our listeners as well. So before anything, Dorsey, what do you think about introducing yourself?
Well, my name is Dorsey Ross. I am from the United States. I live in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and I currently work at Target. And I am also a podcaster myself. I'm an author, and I also travel around and speak and share my story.
All right, so you also have a podcast. You're also an author. You also wrote a book. So, what is your podcast about?
It's a faith-based podcast where I interview people who have amazing stories of faith and overcoming trials and overcoming difficulties in their life. But it's all, I've interviewed people about finances and about sports and about athletes and different things of that nature as well.
All right, so we could say things that you're interested on, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, how is your podcast called?
It's just my name, just Dorsey Ross Show.
All right, so we're gonna make sure to leave the link on the description below. So you have a podcast. You talk about overcoming adversity. So that's one of the topics that I wanted to talk with you today as well, and that's mostly related to your condition. Am I right?
Correct.
And what is it exactly?
It is called Apert, APERT syndrome, syndrome, and it's a congenital birth defect of the hands and the face. And when I was born, my forehead was pushed outward, my eyes and nose were pushed back into my head, and my fingers and toes refused to get them. I mean, I had no individual movement of them. And this is a very rare, birth defect. It affects probably about 1 in 80,000 or 1 in 110,000 births, people who, babies. And, so this is very rare. And back when I was born on January 16th, 1977. So even back then, it was, rarer more than it is, today. And when I was born, I had no skull opening and no room for my brain to grow, which would allow the brain to grow and allow it to function normally, which most babies that are born that they have. And I did not have that. And my parents, who were both, people of faith, who knew God and trusted in God, they were told by the doctors that, we don't think Dorsey will make it. We don't think he will survive. And we think that the best, option for you would be to sign the papers over and to put him into a institution, and that way you can go about, living your life. You can go home. You don't have to worry about him anymore. And thankfully, my parents said, no, we can't do that. We will not sign our baby away to the state or to the government, and we will not put him into a institution. And they said, we'll see what happens, and if he survives, he survives, and if he doesn't, then it is what it is. Basically, it's God's will either way. And my parents had heard from a nurse in the hospital where I was born in Jamaica, New York. I'm originally from New York. I'm now living here in Pennsylvania. And the nurse there said, well, why don't you take him to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in New York City, where they're doing operations on babies, like your son, and you can talk to them and see what they say. And they did. And they said, we can operate on your son. We can, relieve the pressure on his brain, and we'll see if he survives, and but he'll have to overcome a lot of operations and a lot of difficulties in his life. And I had my first of many operations at 6 weeks of age to open the skull and to allow my brain to grow and allow it to function normally. And throughout my lifetime, I'm 47 now, and throughout my lifetime, I've had up to 68 operations, mostly on my face and on my fingers to separate my fingers and to allow my fingers to operate as normally as they can.
Got it. Wow. So, if I understood correctly, more than 60 operations?
Yes, up to 68.
Oh my God. And how many of those were when you were a kid? Most of them, right?
I would say, yeah, I would say about 80, probably 80, 90%. 80, 90% were when I was younger, probably younger than 15.
I cannot imagine that going through that. I assume that after a while you just for that's how things go. So the question is, did you ever got used to them, or was always like you were nervous and
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was probably there was time when I was nervous. There were times when I would get worried about him and nervous about him. But that's where my mom and my dad came in, and they would comfort me, and they would say, hey, everything's going to be okay. My mom and I, each time I would go into the operating room, my mom and I would play together, that God would protect me and that God would watch over me, and that excuse me, and then I was even so nervous one time and so upset one time that she even had to come into the operating room with me. And I remember the one time the anesthesiologist, had to go and do something, and she's standing there, and this was before they, did the needles and everything that they do now. But he was like, hey, can you hold this for him to put him to sleep? Because that's when, they will give you the oxygen to, or the gas to put you to sleep back then in that time. So yeah, it was I was still nervous. I was still worried about it. Still wondering what would happen. And none of it was really um it wasn't more plastic surgery, but I understood it as it was helping me not only to look better, but also to help myself, help my confidence, so that when I was out in the world, people wouldn't you know make fun of me as often as they did, or I'll be able to breathe better. And what they would do when they were operating on me, they would, look at my dad, or maybe even take a picture of my dad and say, okay, we'll shape his head as best as we can to make him look more like his dad, or his eyes, or his nose, or those features to make me look more like my dad.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know this was possible. So while they, yeah, while they were operating you, they were trying to shape your face like your dad. That's amazing. So
Yeah,
what? I didn't know this was possible. That's incredible. Okay. So from what I hear, you have incredible parents, Dorsey. Like they didn't gave up on you at any point.
right, absolutely.
They sticked along. They said that's our son. We're gonna work it through, and that's really inspiring. That's amazing. So, you mentioned about praying. Are you religious?
I am a Christian. I am what we would call in the Christian faith, born again. I have a relationship, with God, and I am actually also a ordained minister as well.
A minister? What do you mean by that?
Yes,
What do you mean by minister?
pastor.
A pastor.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So you go to the church. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't have my own church, but I travel around and I speak at different churches and different events.
All right. Okay, that's amazing. So religion is really part of your life.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I realized like I grew up without believing in God at all. My parents sometimes they would pray with me. I was like, this is so annoying. But as I grew older, there's something comforting about it. You know, I gave it a try. I went through some stuff like in the past years. Like, okay, you know what? There's so many people who do it. Like, what if? What if it helps? So I gave it a try, and now I pray from time to time, and there's something really comforting about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is. And the closer you get to know God, and the closer you get to know who He is, you start to have that relationship, with Him, and you start to believe, that there is a heaven, and that there is, a hell, and you start to believe what the Bible actually is telling you.
Yeah, I don't consider myself a Christian, but I'm way more spiritual than I was before, and something that I never imagined that it would it would happen in my life. So yeah, it's really inspiring. It's really interesting. So Dorsey, I know that you also wrote a book, right?
I did.
So how is the book called and what it is about?
It is called Overcoming, Discovering God's Plan Against All Odds, and it is my story. It is based on my story, and what I've been through in my life. Initially it came out in 2016, and then I did a rewrite of it in 2020.
A rewrite, so you added more stuff?
Yes, I added a little bit more, um, you know, grammatically, changed a couple things within it, different things of that nature as well.
Okay, like what? Could you give a little bit of the book?
Um, well, I like one of the things that I talk about in the book is about my desire to hopefully one day to get married.
Mm,
And when you have a physical disability, you feel that you're not as you know you're not as good looking as other people. You're not as good looking as the next guy, or or excuse me, when you see a good looking girl that you're attractive to, you're a little bit more apprehensive to wanting to go and to talk to that to talk to that girl because you're afraid of rejection, or you're afraid of what she is going to say to you. I went to a school, because of my disability. I went to a school throughout most of my life up until I graduated high school. I went to a school for people with disabilities where all the students had some type of disability. So I never went to a school where they didn't have, you know, quote unquote, people without disabilities. So I didn't have the. I mean, I had it outside of that school, but I didn't have the interaction with teenagers, you know, inside of that school that didn't have, disabilities. So I think for the majority of us, at least in my own opinion, I think, talking to someone of the opposite sex is difficult for, I would say for a lot of us.
mhm. So if I understood correctly, you went to a school with other kids that were also disabled, and
Correct.
at any moment, I think you also mentioned about bullying. Did you suffer bullying there?
I did. In the school I did suffer bullying. Um I guess it was just because, you know, it's like that old saying goes, um I can't think of it right I can't think of it right now. But, there's no saying hurt hurt people hurt people.
Oh yes,
Meaning, another word meaning that
yeah.
if you've been hurt by someone else in the past, you're going to take that out on someone else and hurt them. So I think that's what may um have had may have instigated that, is that people, because of maybe people bullying them. They said, well, because I've been bullied, I'm gonna bully somebody else because I'm gonna feel like the bigger person. And it wasn't just from people um in the school. It was from people on the outside of the school, in my neighborhood, in the the places I would go and visit. People calling me monster and freak. People pointing at me, staring at me. You know, probably questioning in their own minds. What happened to him? You know, why did he look like that? I've heard. You know, was he in a fire? When I was never in a fire. And I think that's the other thing that people with disabilities would benefit from, or at least people without disability would benefit from, is to understand that, we are not afraid of being asked questions. If you do it in a polite manner, we do not mind you asking questions. We will probably prefer you to become our friends first. Not just come up to us and on the street and say, "What happened to you?" But um, but come become friends with us first and say, "Hey, I know that you have a disability. Can I sit down with you and you can tell me about your story. You can tell me about why you, what has happened to you in your own life."
So that would be the best approach, not just judge, I mean, of course, and just sit down and have a conversation. Man, you just remind me of a story. We'll share a short story with you if that's okay. When I was
Sure.
doing my studies at university, so I graduated in game design. So I develop games for a living besides the
Okay.
podcast. And during my game design studies, I had to design a game for deaf people, so people who could not hear. And as part of the design process, I needed to understand the target audience. So what did I do? I booked an appointment in I don't know how they call it. Like it's a house where deaf people go, they interact, they learn the sign language, etc. It was like, hey, that's the deal. I'm doing a game for people who are deaf. Can I just come over and talk to you guys and get to know you guys? And I was what 17 at the time. I was full of assumptions and like, I had no idea what I was doing, basically. But I went there and I was so humbled by the whole experience. Like at some point, I was asking, "But do you guys like date? Do you guys?" And I was lucky. I was lucky enough that the guy that I was interviewing, quote unquote interviewing, he was like super chill and he was full of humor. It was like, of course, like we date, we fuck, we go to raves, we do everything that like people who can hear do, like basically everything. The only difference is that we have like the sign language thing, but everything else is the same. I was like, oh, I get it. So you're people as well. It's like say like me like it sounds so stupid saying this now, but I was stupid. I'm glad that I went through this experience,
Sure.
and I'm not sure if a lot of people does. You know what I'm talking about? So
Yeah.
it's very easy to judge, and especially when you don't know the other people that are going through. But I think that's also part of human nature, right? Because we fear the unknown. It's a little
Right.
bit. It's a little bit part of our instincts, I would say. Yeah, and that's why also I try not to take personally. Like I so I'm gonna share another story. That's okay. I live in Germany, but I'm not. I'm originally from Brazil, which means I'm an immigrant. We could say that I have like Italian nationality, thanks to my dad. But a lot of people here they see me as an immigrant. So basically, the unknown, and what they do, they just judge. They hate me for no reason whatsoever. So I cannot compare, of course, but I can say that I understand a little bit what you went through. Like
Yeah.
it's not comparable, of course, but
Sure. Yeah. So, as I don't know. You want me to continue my story, or you got another question for me?
no, of course you can continue.
Okay. You know, as we all do when we're young adults and in our teenage years, we're getting ready to graduate college, or high school rather, excuse me. We start to wonder, what is it that I want to do? What is it that what is my career going to be? What is my goal going to be in life? My purpose going to be in life? And I had because as I mentioned, I was in the school for people with disabilities, and um, we had to have a meeting to to determine whether or not, we would go on to college. Is college a good, would college be a good fit for me? And my high school history teacher was there, and he was asked, do you think that Dorsey will be able to make it in college? And he said, no, I don't think that Dorsey will be able to make it in college. I don't think he has the opportunity to make it in college. And thankfully, my mom was there, and my mom is a big, and my dad, they're both big supporters of me, and would always push me to do things on my own and figure out, what I could and could not do. And couldn't wasn't really very much in my life. And my my mom said, well, you know, if Dorsey thinks he can make it in college, he will. And regardless of what was at that meeting, regardless of what was said at that meeting, I was determined to at least try and see, if I can make it in college. And and the first couple of weeks, because I went to community college at first, and it was very difficult for me. And I was trying to see, is this even possible? Is this even a good idea for me to be in? Because I was never really a great student to begin with. I didn't do, you know, ace all the classes. I didn't, get the valedictorian speak when I graduated. And, I even had a discussion with my mom one time. I said, I don't think I can make it. And she said, take it a little longer, take it a few more weeks, and if you still feel this way, then we'll figure out, something else for you to do. And, again, my faith helped me through it because I found out that they had a Bible study on the campus where I was attending, and I was able to go to the Bible study that they were having, and that helped me. That encouraged me to be there with other students and now friends that I made, and that they helped me to push through and to push forward in my studies. And it took me 4 years to do a 2 year community college, but I was able to make it and able to go forward, and I got um my associate's degree in liberal arts, and I still wanted to go on because at that time I wanted to become a youth minister, and I went to Bible college, and in 2002 I got a call that my mom had passed away, and it was during the end of the first semester in December of 2002, and I went home, was part of the funeral and everything, and I came back that same semester, and I still, finished up my course my coursework and my finals, and I still, knew that my mom wouldn't have wanted me to quit. My mom wouldn't have wanted me to give up. So, long story long story short, 3 years later, I started in 2000 at this Bible college, and I graduated on May 5th, 2005. and I got my Bachelor of Arts degree in youth ministry.
Damn, that's amazing. I'm out of words. Like, for real, like your determination is inspiring, and like your mom as well as a role model. Uh, Supporting you all the way. I'm watching a show right now on Disney Plus. It's called Bluey. It's all about good parenthood, and it's a skill. And your mom had it. That's amazing. Oof, that's really good. I don't know what to say. I'm out of words. Really inspired. Um, so I found a web page. 1 second. That I would like to read for our listeners. So it's called Apert syndrome. I'm pronouncing it correctly, Apert.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna read it real quick, just to educate everyone. So Apert syndrome, also called acrocephalocydactyly, is a genetic syndrome characterized by anomalies of the skull, face, and limbs. Gene mutations are responsible for causing the early fusion of the skull, hands, and feet bones. Individuals with Apert syndrome typically have the following conditions. Okay, so basically what we covered already. So you mentioned that you went through some surgeries on your skull, through your hands, but did you also had to go undergo surgeries on your feet?
No, right now, to this day, my feet are still webbed or fused together, meaning that the toes are fused together. Not my feet, not my feet per se, but the toes are fused together, meaning that I don't have individual movement of the toes.
Okay. Would it be possible to undergo another surgery to adjust that?
I could. I don't know if I want to because I think it would be a bigger undertaking than anything I've gone to so far. And I walk normally. You know, I stand on my feet for 5 hours at a time. With my work at Target. So my feet, my fused toes at the moment don't really bother me.
Got it. Dorsey, I know that in the US, healthcare is very expensive. I know stories about people who suffered some type of accident. They had to call the ambulance and they ended up paying $5,000, something like that. I heard even stories that whenever you have a kid, you need to pay in order to hold your baby. I don't know if this is true. Maybe you know more than I do. But my question would be about healthcare. How much of all of this is covered by healthcare in the U.S.?
A lot of it wasn't. I mean, thankfully, my dad had a good job with the school system. He was a custodian in the school system in New York. So a good portion of the healthcare was taken care of through the insurance that we had. But for the most part, we still had to pay a lot of that, out of our own pockets. Unfortunately,
Oh man, yeah. I don't understand like stuff like that should be fully covered. In my opinion. There's so many other stuff. Like not only that, there's so much stuff that I hear that are not covered in the U.S. and that should be, in my opinion. And from what I know, the pills and the medications prices are only going up every year.
right?
Do you need to take any medication?
I do take medication for my epilepsy. I
Okay.
have a seizure condition, but I haven't had any. Excuse me, I haven't had any for a long time now. For probably about the last 14 years, I haven't had. Um, over the last 10 years, I haven't had one. So thankfully, I'm okay with that, but because of that, I still have to take that medication. But that's the only big medication that I have to take at the moment.
All right, so epilepsy is when there's a lot of flashing lights, right? And
Yes.
okay, and
It,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it causes seizures, and I think because when I was young, all the operations that they did, on the forehead and on the skull, that it didn't. I don't know if it damaged it, but that's what probably caused the seizures to happen when I was a young child, young teenager.
All right, so you okay, but thanks to the meds, it doesn't happen anymore. Do you, like, does it feel like, does it hurt, or do you feel something while you're having a seizure?
I don't recall much of what any of them that I had. So it doesn't really hurt. No,
Okay.
not to my knowledge or recollection, at least.
Once I had a colleague at school who had a seizure in the middle of class. Everyone just stood up, and everyone got scared because they didn't know what was going on, and she also said she could not remember afterwards. It's funny. I would expect that you are fully present, you know?
Wait, yeah,
Yeah, but that's not the case. Yeah. Well, Dorsey, something like while we were talking, I before, something that I remember is that it doesn't matter where you start. That's a quote, right? It doesn't matter where you start. It only matters like where you're
we was.
going. Yeah, and I mean you're the living proof of that. There's so many people who are born like in first world countries and are rich and have everything at their disposal and just complain about life and say life is not fair. Come on, what are you talking about? Go after it. Go live your life. But it's easier to complain, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, it's easier to complain at times.
Yeah. So that's something that I've been aware for the last couple of years or something, and that's something that is contagious. Depending with the friend group that you are, like you start getting some of their attributes, how to say, not their attributes but their mannerisms, you know. And something that I notice, depending on the friend group that I am, I just start complaining more, and then or not, you know. And as soon as I became aware of this, I just stopped hanging out with the group who was complaining all the time because it's just draining, you know. I can't take it anymore now that I am aware of it. So
Right.
yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. That. Oh yeah, now remember, you mentioned that you had a group of friends who were very supportive, right?
Yes.
Do you still have contact with them?
Um. In the school, in college, I had this one friend. A lot of my friends in community college, I don't have contact with. I do have contact with the one guy in community college. He's actually now a pastor back home, and it's ironic because he wanted to become a missionary to Africa, and so he went on to Bible college, and it was the same Bible college that I went to. So we joke around because like I tell him, well, I followed you to Bible college, and then he lived in New York, obviously, because that's where we went to community college, and then he went home to attend his church, and then when I graduated, I started to attend that same church. So I kid around with him that I was like, look, I'm not following you anywhere else. I'm not gonna follow you. If you go off to Africa, I'm not gonna follow you to Africa. This is the farthest that I'll go.
Oh
I'll
man.
stop following you. But yeah, when I went to Bible college, I had a lot of good friends, and I keep in touch with them.
Hmm.
I still, and now that I moved now that I moved back to Pennsylvania, the Bible college where I attend isn't too far, away from where I attend. So I have friends in the area that, we all went to Bible college at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got it. Have you ever been to Africa, Dorsey?
I have Africa.
Yeah,
No, I have not been to Africa.
and you should go one day. It's amazing.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I've been there. I think Kenya and Tanzania. It's really cool. So since you know a lot about the Bible, I think there's a great opportunity for me to ask a couple of things that
Uh.
they might sound a little bit stupid, but those are genuine questions. So
Okay.
the first one is I hear there's like a controversy if Jesus was a real person because I think it Jesus can also be interpreted as the son, right? He was reborn after the third day. I don't know where I saw this, but there's some religions that consider Jesus basically the son, and they personified the son and created a character out of it, Jesus. So does this makes any sense in your opinion?
Well, yeah, because I believe, from what I read in the Bible and what I believe from the Bible in faith, that yes, I believe that when Jesus was born and when he was here on earth, that even before he died, that he was the son of God. Because we believe that Mary was, gave birth to Jesus via the Immaculate Conception, meaning that she was a virgin and that she didn't, there was no, male and female sex. It was just her giving birth to Christ, to Jesus.
All right, all right. Yeah, but what I mean was the sun, like the star and the sky. You know, some people believe that Jesus is just a metaphor for the star that we have in our galaxy.
Oh,
That's what I heard.
that that I don't know. I never heard of that before.
Okay, yeah, it was like in a documentary called Zeitgeist. I watched like 15 years ago, and well, as as I mentioned before, 15 years ago was pretty dumb. I don't know how true this documentary was. So that's not a thing that you heard before.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
But I mean, there's a lot of things out there that people say, about religion and religions that I have no idea, about.
uh, which so another question would be how many versions of the Bible are there? Because I know there's like New Testament, Old Testament. Like, what are those differences? Are those like revisions?
No, those are the Old and New Testament. Now, when she says versions of the Bible, is she bec- now the Old and New Testament is they're they're the company they're combined. Um, it's Old Testament is talking about what happened before Christ came into the world, and it talks about in Genesis. It talks about how God created the world, and it talks about Israel being in bondage and Moses coming out, and eventually the Israelites are freed from slavery, and then it's the New Testament is talking about the Gospels and the four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and it's talking about the story of Christ and the birth of Christ, and the rest of it is talking about you know some of it is sending letters to the church, and the church is just inspiring people to know and to know more about Christ and about when he may return.
All right.
If that makes sense. Now,
So
I mean, there are multiple. I mean, if she's talking about versions. I mean, there are multiple versions of the Bible. You know, there's King James version, there's NIV version, there's NASB version. I mean, there's multiple versions of that. Now, my opinion, you can read the different versions of the Bible, but it's just giving you um, different ways and easier ways of reading it, of reading the Bible.
different ways of reading the Bible. What do you mean by that? So it's open for interpretation?
No, no, it's not open for interpretation, but it's um, well, it's um, it, it's not open for interpretation, but it's easier. The language and the way they word it is easier to understand it than the original King James version of the of the Bible.
Oh, got it. Okay, so they made it easier to understand it. Okay, okay,
Correct.
got it. So you mentioned about Christ returning. So that's a common belief among Christians.
Yes.
Could you expand on that?
Um, we believe, that Christ can come back at any moment. We believe it's called the imminent return of Christ. That at any moment Christ can come back for his people, and that we will, all the Christians that believe in God can go, that will eventually end up in heaven.
All right, and I like that you added the imminent return because imminent means that it's gonna happen,
Correct.
and so that's something that the Bible says.
Correct.
All right, okay, that's interesting. There's like possible time frame or
Well, that's the other thing that a lot of people try to put a time frame on, and you know that's not really accurate to do, because the Bible says no one knows the day or the hour of his return except for the Father.
got it. So it's
Meaning,
imminent. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, meaning the Father, meaning God.
Got it. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. I never heard about it before. So the imminent return of Christ. Okay. Have you seen? So there's this Noah's Ark, right? That's part of the Bible
Yes,
as well. Yeah. Um, have you seen? There's some speculations or rumors that they found where the Ark is.
yes,
I saw that on YouTube the other day. Was like, nah, get out of here. This is like a clickbait or something. And then I started watching the video. Like, there's have so many compelling arguments that make. I mean, I start believing on it. So,
yeah.
do you remember how the whole thing was called? The place was called again?
I don't remember. I don't remember the place exactly, but I know. But I know that I think I even seen the same video that you're talking about, and I remember um, I remember seeing that video.
So I'm sharing the screen right now. So it's called the Mountains of Ararat. In the book of Genesis, the ark came to rest upon the mountains of Ararat, located in the ancient kingdom of Urartu, an area that now includes Armenia and parts of eastern Turkey and Iran. Not the single iconic peak that bears its names today. So I'm sharing a couple of images right now, and you can clearly see like this arc shape, and from the video that I watched, at least some archaeologists or some people, they went there to this place, no, this one, and they excavated the soil, and they found
Okay.
pieces of wood from like
Okay.
2,000 years ago. I was like, damn, either this is a very good scam or it's real, you know. It's impressive stuff. And Dorsey, if I'm not mistaken, they found like hundreds of graves around it. So apparently throughout history, a lot of people, they went there and decided to get uh, buried there in order to be
Okay.
closer to the supposedly ark. And I was like, damn, there's a whole lore around this. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because at least me and my friend circle, like we as I mentioned before, like I was not very religious growing up, so for me this was all fiction, you know, like those were stories that were told throughout history in order for people to learn something. But apparently there's a lot of evidence that some of those things actually happened.
Right.
Yeah. Do you know any of other stories like this?
Okay.
Oh, isn't there one that it's like a piece of cloth and they have Jesus' face on it?
Yeah. That. I've heard about that as well. That I'm not sure if I believe in the hype about that. I mean, it could be, but I'm not sure if I believe in the hype or not. I think sometimes people, you know, just do things, or they come up with things just to say that, it's just to say that it's part of the Bible, just to say that it's, you know, a religious artifact when it's really not. But that's just my own opinion.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, if you want people to believe in your religion, I guess some people might go to the extremes, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I think I remember one. I saw that on I read that on school. There was a church, I don't know where. They had like those statues, wooden statues inside of the church. And what they would do, they would have inside of the wooden statue, like it was they would have some strings and some gears, and they would make it they would turn it from time to time to make it look like it was moving, and people would believe that it was a miracle of some sort. So
Okay.
I think it falls under this category. uh yeah, but you know what, like all of those things, at the end of the day, those are not the important parts of religion, at least from what I learned. Like I would say I'm not a religious person, but more spiritual person. I would say
Hmm.
that over time during my life I found spirituality, and that's something within. That's something that is inside of us.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
I would. Yeah.
Uh, I think a lot of people try to find external answers when most of them can be found internally, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. I don't know what else to ask, Dorsey. If you have anything else to share, I would love to hear it.
Yeah,
Or
well, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for having me, and please check out my website at www.dorseyrossministries.com, and keep persevering, keep moving forward, and don't give up in what it is that you want to do in your life.
that's beautiful. Keep persevering, everyone. Um, Thanks for being a guest, Dorsey. It was lovely. Um, and take care. And we're gonna make sure to leave all the links on the description below. All right. So thank you, everyone. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that podcasts will be recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. Check out now the BruCast store, our Explorer store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BruCast. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Buy now at brew-cast.com/store. I repeat, brew-cast.com/store. Links on the description below. BruCast also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where I upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, BruCast on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links on the description below. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Dorsey. It was a pleasure. See you next time. Bye bye.